Do you know what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Carter.
So, what can you tell us about James?
Well, James and I go way back. I've known him for as long as I've been alive, really. I guess if you really want to know the full story about Jimmy, you need to know about what happened with his mother. Picture downtown Denver in the fall. A slight mist rolls over the city. There's a pregnant woman standing on the sidewalk. Without any warning, she goes into labor. In desperation, she hails down a passing trolley. The trolley driver stops. She boards the trolley. The trolley conductor starts booking it for the nearest hospital. But it's no use. The woman has to give birth on the trolley. And in her dying breath, she names her new baby boy James. Now, I don't know how much you know about the adoption system in Colorado 20 years ago, but it could have used some work. So Jimmy ended up in an orphanage in Denver, where he spent the first, 18 years of his life, really. But his story kind of calms down until he gets to first grade. Now, first grade is when I first met Jimmy, and let's say even back then it was clear he wasn't the brightest kid. First grade, he was just completely fell behind all the other students in class. I don't know. The teacher didn't know what to do with him. The other kids made fun of him. It wasn't looking good. Second grade, much the same. I don't know how Jimmy made it through that. Third grade is when things really started to turn around for Jimmy. You see, we were in class one day, and I can't remember the exact problem, but it was something like you have 3 trolleys and you add 4 more. How many trolleys do you end up with? And Jimmy instantly knew that was 7 trolleys. Before that, he'd been terrible at math. He couldn't even do addition. But suddenly, when you introduced trolleys, he knew exactly what to do. So the teacher took notice and asked Jimmy what 4 trolleys times 8 trolleys was, and he instantly knew it was 32 trolleys squared. Turns out, Jimmy could solve any math problem as long as it was about trolleys. Jimmy suddenly rose to stardom. He got an article in the newspaper about him. He was so smart. The thing was, he could only do it when it was about trolleys. I don't know. No one knew what was wrong with him then, but I mean, now it seems so obvious. But so we go ahead to 4th grade, and Jimmy is a prodigy. He's the second coming of Christ, some say. So the people at the orphanage enter him into the National Mathematics Competition in Washington, D.C. And it's a huge deal. There's people from Denver who fund his trip there. He's the local hero. So they fly him out there, and he gets to the competition. And it turns out none of the questions there are about trolleys. So Jimmy gets there. He doesn't get any of the questions right. Scores are read out on national TV. Jimmy is a 0. It's terrible for him. He goes through depression. Every ounce of fame he once had, he lost. He's made fun of again. It's terrible. 5th grade, Jimmy's the laughingstock of school. Terrible for him. Now, Jimmy's experience in middle school is a rather interesting tale. You see, in 6th grade, we all moved on to middle school. We met a lot of new people there. And one girl that caught Jimmy's attention was named Trolleyna. And Jimmy and Trolleyna just instantly hit it off. They say don't bother with middle school relationships. They never lead to anything. But I could tell there was really something there between those two. So 7th grade is when things start to get serious between Trolleyna and Jimmy. Jimmy gets to meet Trolleyna's parents, which is kind of a big deal for a middle school relationship. It turns out that Trolleyna's dad is a trolley conductor, and since Jimmy's always loved trolleys, it's amazing for him. He gets to go, up to the front of the trolley with Trolleyna's dad, see what it's like up there. Jimmy's just amazed by it. These two have, everyone in the school knows that they're together, that they're deep in love. But then 8th grade rolls around and, the same stuff as usual happens to Jimmy. He gets dealt a bad hand. Finds out that Trolleyna's moving away to San Francisco because her dad got a job there. Just tears him up, really. He was a wreck after that. It was like the national math competition all over again. He didn't speak to anyone. He just wanted to stay home all day and think about things. So next come Jimmy's high school years, and I had my freshman English class with him, and that was it. But I remember big end of the year project in there. We had to do a research report on whatever topic we chose, and of course Jimmy chose trolleys because he's such a huge fan. So Jimmy starts researching trolleys. He finds out loads of information, gives an amazing presentation, gets an A on it. Things are starting to look up for him. Maybe he can get a liberal arts degree or something. But then we went to a small high school, so sophomore year English, I had it with him again, and we had the same teacher that year. So again, we had the big end of the year project. Again, Jimmy chose trolleys. Gave another amazing presentation. Hey, would you mind? It's getting hot in here.
Oh, yeah, sure. Here,
I don't think I can. Thanks.
yeah, no problem.
Where was I?
Middle school, was it? Or high school?
High school, sophomore year. He chose trolleys again. Again, his presentation was amazing. We learned so much stuff about trolleys there, but the teacher wasn't too happy. The teacher told him, Jimmy, I remember last year you talked about trolleys then. You can't do that twice in a row. I'm gonna have to give you a C this year. You can't just repeat your old work. So, Jimmy kind of took that loss in stride, didn't really let it get to him. He just liked trolleys so much that it didn't really affect him. But junior year, we had the same teacher again, and again, we had to give that big end of the year report. But Jimmy chose trolleys again, even though he knew from last year that he wasn't supposed to talk about trolleys. But he went ahead with it anyway, and God, that presentation was better than the last two combined. The entire class learned so much about trolleys that day. I didn't even know some of that stuff was possible. But the teacher again said, Jimmy, I warned you not to give your presentation about trolleys again. And, she failed it that year, and Jimmy didn't really care. He just loved trolleys so much that it didn't really get to him. So he ended up having to repeat his junior year. But the next year, he was in the same English class, same teacher. I was in there with him. And again, you know the drill, we had the end of the year report. And the teacher even warned him in class, do not give your presentation on trolleys. But Jimmy just didn't care. He went ahead, made it about trolleys. That last presentation he gave, I don't even know how we got some of that information about trolleys. There's just so much there. It's impossible how much he knew. But after that, the teacher said, "Jimmy, I warned you. Yeah, and I've been talking with the principal. I'm afraid you're going to be kicked out of school." So Jimmy finally realized what was happening, the mistakes he'd made, the bad decisions. He went down to the principal's office to try to talk it over, and the principal told him that the principal knew that Jimmy knew a lot about trolleys, and he talked with Trolley University in San Francisco about Jimmy attending there next year, and they were okay with it since they knew, Jimmy might not have the work ethic, but he certainly loved trolleys so much that they thought he'd be a great fit there. So the next year, Jimmy packed up his things and moved to San Francisco to start Trolley University. So Jimmy gets to college just fine, and he finds out the federal government has bought him a brand new laptop, and he gets to his dorm, gets all set up, hooks it up to the Wi-Fi. And before this, Jimmy had never had access to the internet before. He didn't know all the stuff that was out there. So Jimmy just starts looking up stuff on his computer about trolleys, finding stuff he'd never found before, the history of trolleys, and, the future of trolleys using alternative energy, stuff like that. But Jimmy gets so carried away that he misses his first day of classes, and then the first week, and then the first month, and he's called into the dean's office. The dean tells him, "Jimmy, what you're doing is inexcusable. You need to attend class so you can get your trolley degree. We here at Trolley University know just how passionate you are about trolleys. I've talked with the San Francisco Trolley Service, and they're willing to offer you a job as a trolley conductor starting next week. Please pack your things, get ready to move out of the dorm, and start your job as a trolley conductor." Now, Jimmy has mixed feelings about this. He wanted to go to college, but being a trolley conductor's always been his dream. It's what he's wanted to do since the day he was born. So Jimmy's kind of torn up about all of this. He wanted to get his trolley degree since he's always wanted one, but he's also always wanted to be a trolley conductor, so now he kind of gets to live out his dream in a roundabout way. So Jimmy, he goes to his first day of work, he meets his new boss, meets his co-workers, gets into the trolley, starts her up. Things are going smooth for the first 10-15 minutes, but then Jimmy gets into a tragic trolley accident and kills 30 innocent people. The police show up, they arrest him, the usual stuff. And Jimmy gets sent to trial, he's found guilty, and he's sentenced to death for, 30 counts of vehicular manslaughter. So Jimmy was taken to death row, and the guards there tell him, "Jimmy, it's customary that prisoners on death row get to choose their final meal. Is there anything that you'd want?" Jimmy says, "Well, there's these strange blue apples from South America that I've always kind of wanted to try. I'd like those to be my last meal." Now, since the apples are from South America, it takes a while to transport them, and they don't get there until a month later. Finally, they do arrive, and the guards give them to Jimmy and says, "All right, Jimmy, here's your final meal. I hope you enjoy." So Jimmy takes a bite out of these blue apples, and they're amazing. They're crispy, they're delicious, they're anything you could ever want in an apple. But after that, the guards say, "All right, Jimmy, you've had your last meal. It's time to put you on the electric chair." So they take him in, they put him on the chair, strap him in, and they turn the power on, and nothing. Jimmy survives the electric chair. But the guards come up to him and say, "Well, Jimmy, there's this old law that says if you survive the electric chair, we have to let you go." So Jimmy's set free, but everyone in San Francisco has heard of Jimmy by this point. So he moved to New York to try to escape the negative press. And there he gets a job as, of course, a trolley conductor. It's his first day on the job there. He gets to meet his new boss and co-workers and all of that jazz. And then he gets behind the wheel of the trolley and it starts going, and things are going smooth for, a half hour. And then, again, he gets into an accident and kills 28 innocent people with his trolley. Again, the police show up, they arrest him, goes to trial, found guilty, public defender isn't worth anything. Again, he's sentenced to death. So, the guards say, "Jimmy, you know the drill. Prisoners on death row get to choose their final meal. What would you like?" So Jimmy says, "Well, there's these blue apples from South America that I had once, and I'd really like to have them again." So the guards, they go do their research on how they get these blue apples, and it turns out that the blue apples are out of season, and they're going to have to wait 4 months until they get any more. So they do wait, they respect Jimmy's wishes, and 4 months pass by. Finally, the blue apples arrive in New York, and the guards give them to Jimmy, saying, "Jimmy, this is your last meal. I hope you enjoy." So Jimmy eats the blue apples, and they're even better than he remembered. They're crispy, they're delicious, they're the best food he's ever had. But after that, the guards say, "Jimmy, it's time for the electric chair." So they take him, they strap him in, they turn the power on, and nothing. Again, Jimmy survives the electric chair, and no one understands why this is happening. Scientists want to know why, but Jimmy doesn't let them. And again, the guards say, "Jimmy, you survived the electric chair. You know how this goes. We have to let you go free." And Jimmy's made national news at this point, so he decides to move overseas to try to escape all the attention he's gotten. And he moves to London, where he gets a job doing the only thing he knows how to do, conducting a trolley. So, it's his first day there. He gets to meet his co-workers, all the people he's going to work with. Things are smooth for about the first hour. Then he gets into another accident and kills 17 innocents. And yet again, the police show up, they arrest him, and he goes to trial, found guilty as usual, sentenced to death. And there the guards say, "Jimmy, you know how this works. You get to choose your final meal. What would you like this time?" Jimmy says, "Well, there's these strange blue apples from South America I've had a few times. I'd like to have them again for my final meal." So it takes a while for them to get the blue apples from South America. This time they have to wait 8 whole months before they finally arrive. And once they do, Jimmy is just amazed by them. They're better than the first 2 times. They're delicious, they're crispy, they taste like the nectar of the gods. But after that, the guards take him, put him in the electric chair. They turn the power on and nothing. And again, they say, Jimmy survives the electric chair. Now, afterwards, one of the guards stops him and says, "Jimmy, you survived the electric chair 3 times. How do you do it?" And Jimmy just looks at him and says, "I guess I was just a bad conductor."